Hello everyone and welcome back to Powerful Nothing, a Magic the Gathering Cube podcast. I'm your host Dan, and on the internet is Too Sweet MTG, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host James. How's it going, dude?
It's going good. It's going good. We've got some drama to talk about. We've got some broken Magic cards in Cube and other formats.
Yes, it's kind of wild how everything's kind of come together. So today, for our main topic, we are going to be talking about Nadu in Cube and why Nadu is actually fine. Cube is the format for Nadu. Stay tuned, we're going to be selling it to you because it is a ton of fun. Before we get into that main topic, let's kick off with some news. So first off, let's talk about some nice stuff. In the world of Cube, the Magic Online Vintage Cube Live has kind of... we are approaching the zenith. We are approaching the main event. James, I know you've been playing a bunch of this, and you've got relatively far. You've done pretty well in these tournaments. You want to talk about the Vintage Cube Live thing that's been going on, and what's coming up in a couple of weeks, which is kind of like the reward for everyone who's qualified?
Oh, I certainly sunk some play points into it. To no lasting success, we had some good attempts. Yes, this was the Magic Online event where if you win and then win again and then do a lot more winning, then they'll fly you out to Las Vegas and you get to draft a paper vintage cube for keeps, which is a really sick prize, which would be absolutely insane to win. The Magic Online events have now concluded. We know the 6 people who have qualified. Many congratulations to them. Yeah, as an event, this was super fun to play, actually. It felt to me like the first time where Cube has been supported as a competitive format. And that's like a pretty new and interesting direction for Cube, I think. Obviously, it's not how most people engage with Cube, but I think that the more options there are for how you want to play Cube, the better. And I had a ton of fun playing this. I like playing Cube anyway, but to me, Magic, when you really care about the result, is just a different experience. And this certainly scratched that itch for me. Not super successful from a personal point of view. I found winning feeder leagues was fine. That was fairly straightforward. Then 64s were an impenetrable wall for me. I top 8'd a couple of them, but never got that W. Yeah, the competition is just very tough in those 64s because everyone's already, if you're like in the feeder leagues, you're like invested enough to be trying to win this thing, right? And then when you got to the 64s, especially like after the first couple of rounds, it's just like everyone you're playing against is very good. And at that point, it kind of feels like you need to open quite well in order to have a deck that can realistically go 3-0 and then to 3-0 again. Because you're just going to run into, at some point, the busted deck with like 3 pieces of power, you know? But I certainly had some fun firing a lot of bullets. I guess my only complaint with this event is that I didn't play nearly as many 64s as I'd have liked to because they're on at really annoying times that they didn't vary as much as they could have done.
Yeah, it was very North America centric, wasn't it? In terms of like times for Europeans and such.
I mean, I assume it was good for someone, but I've heard North American people complaining about the times too. So
wasn't it like 5-6 p.m. our time, which is like I guess 1 in the afternoon, but like 1 in the afternoon on like a Friday is like when people who have jobs are working. So yeah, that's kind of, it's not
exactly. Yeah.
Either way, you're taking a day off work.
Yeah, exactly. For us, it was like 3:30 p.m. or 10:30 p.m. and you can't be starting a 6-round event at 10:30 p.m. with 2 drafts. So yeah, it was tough. I sort of managed to fire like 1 a week because I normally work a half day on a Friday, which was fine. Felt like it was my half days were well used. Yeah, so that would be my own comment. It feels like really easy to just vary the times throughout the week, right? Have a couple of days when they're more European-friendly times would have been really good.
And you still get some like degenerate American gamers on at like 4 a.m. Sure. It's fine.
Oh yeah, I mean, a friend of the show, Eco Bronan, I know is like firing these every day, and he's he's in Europe. But yeah, just for the folks working the 9 to 5s, it's been a bit tough. But yeah, no, outside of that, really sick event. I hope they do it again sometime.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because the main event itself is at MagicCon Vegas, and just as a reminder for everyone, effectively, I'm pretty positive they are chipping in towards your travel, your accommodation, all that kind of stuff, and effectively the prize for this, what James was playing in, what a bunch of players was playing in, is effectively you get to keep your draft pool, and this is a real powered cube. So if you open a Lotus, you get to keep the Lotus. That's incredibly cool. And I got me if I'm wrong, James, but the prize for first place is, so I think it's a 540 cube and there's 8 players drafting. The prize for first place is you just get the rest of the cube.
I think possibly, yeah. But I think maybe the rest of the cube was split between the 2 finalists in the draft. But
Right,
yeah,
okay.
pretty much. That the prize pool of the draft was the undrafted cards in the cube, which I guess if not much power is open, it gets real big.
Yeah, it gets very big very quickly. Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, I'll put some links down in the description below. I know you mentioned Eco Bronin. He's done a video recently of he's been given 3 draft logs from decks that which have qualified for the top 8, which is awesome. And also put a link down to friend of the channel, Fire Truck Modo, who got so close. I'm so proud of that boy. He is such a gamer. He was really unlucky. He was like 1 match away from getting to Vegas, but yeah, incredibly proud of that boy. He will get there one day. We have every faith in him. And yeah, that video is awesome. Go check it out. That'll also be down in the show notes below.
Yeah, for sure. That was an incredible run. That's to do that. You've got a 4-0 feeder league, 6-0 a 64, and then you'd have to 3-0 for final draft to get to Vegas. It's a lot of winning is required.
Yeah, much love. Well done. All right. That was the fun news. I don't particularly want to spend too much time on this. I'm sure people are getting a bit tired of this now, and being honest, like the whole thing is starting to like bum me and everyone out a little bit. But as importantly, it does lead into our episode today. We should touch on it. So let's talk about the commander bans. So for those unaware, there's probably someone who's unaware of this, and I'm sorry if this is how you're finding out. But on the 23rd of September, Nadu, Winged Wisdom, Dockside Extortionist, Jeweled Lotus, and Mana Crypt were all banned in Commander. Now this has been the biggest news in Magic for quite a long time. It's been the bulk of the news the last couple of weeks. And it could potentially be the most impactful ban ever when it comes to just like players affected, monetary value, that kind of stuff. But the aftermath of this has kind of fallen into like 2 conversations and 2 categories. The first is on the ban itself, and I think like the majority of people, I'm kind of like, on one hand, games of Commander probably and might be better after this for the average spread of players. But on the other hand, I think the way the communication on this wasn't fantastic. Like, it felt like it came out of nowhere. The second part of the conversation has basically revolved around people being dicks online. And the past 2 weeks have really confirmed to me that I can't be bothered with Twitter. I can't be bothered with Reddit. I know it's only a minority of the player base, but dear God, it is maddening reading conspiracy theories and hearing about people making threats and hearing about people being doxxed online. It's hard to draw how you get a line from card game to doxing, but that is the world we live in, and it's kind of wild. It's understandable for people to be annoyed and upset, but some people, and it is a minority, and I just stress that, I'm kind of hoping that if you're listening to this, you're probably a Cube player, you're probably a bit more chill, but some people who've just been dicks online the last couple of weeks really need to get a grip. And then the end result of this is, I think, possibly the worst outcome for players in general, and that's because of all the hate being spewed online, because of all the direct threats and threats to physical violence to people, which again is wild that we're talking about this in terms of Magic the Gathering. The Rules Committee has asked Wizards to take ownership of the Commander format. And it does kind of feel like that we're in the worst timeline here. As like, yes, it might be, part of me, it is nice to think that, oh, Gavin Verhey or Mark Rosewater get to say in how Commander is being run. But actually, it's now Wizards of the Coast, a Hasbro company that's in charge of Commander now. It's not they have taken it away. The Commander Rules Committee asked them to take it because they couldn't deal with because of all the build-up of hatred and vitriol and direct threats and doxing, which is wild. Like, we should be better than the Magic community should be better than this. This is wild. And I am positive, and again, it's the vast majority of people this does not apply to, but like, Jesus Christ, it's been a miserable last couple of weeks. How have you felt about it, James? I'm sorry, I kind of went off on one a little bit there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the way some people act online is just mind-blowing to me. Like, perspective, you know. I think it is just a thing of, if you take the bottom 5% of any large group of people, you end up with some real bad people. And we have definitely seen that those people exist in the Magic community. It would be nice if they I don't know, go and play a different card game. That would be fine. But yeah, I think it's not a reflection on 99% of people who play Commander. But yeah, that's where we're at, unfortunately. On the actual bannings themselves, I think the thing that is important to bear in mind with any conversation about the Commander ban list is that it is a way more subjective thing than like what should be banned in Modern. Because when we're talking about a regular constructed format, there is a general assumption to like how people are approaching the format and what people's goals are when they sit down for a game of Modern, right? The assumption is that people are approaching it competitively and trying to win. That's not the case with Commander. That's not how the ban list has been done. I think it's not how it should be done. It was set up as a casual format. So it's banning based on what is most fun, what makes the format the most fun for the most people. That's a way harder thing to judge than like, is Psychic Frog too good in Modern, right?
Yeah.
And it means that everyone has going to come at this from a very different perspective. So I think just because the bannings didn't make sense for you or your playgroup or the way you play Commander, it doesn't necessarily mean that they were bad bannings and that the people doing them didn't know what they were talking about. I think they very much do. From my perspective, I really don't ever play Commander in the wild, as it were. I play like we have a playgroup. I play with those people. Generally, people weren't playing these cards. It doesn't really affect me that much. From the general gameplay experience of the format, it sounded like reasonable bannings to me. Like, I can't imagine these cards particularly adding to in a positive way to the gameplay experience of Commander. I feel like most of the pushback that we saw was more about investment and the cards being expensive and yada yada yada. And like, I understand that, of course. Like, if I had like 10 mana crypts, I'd be bummed out too, right? But I think I probably wouldn't be like super angry about it, because there's a couple of things here, right? Hey, if you have these cards and you had them in your decks, you say like, oh, I lost this amount of money. Well, it's like, did you actually? Because were you going to sell those cards?
Yeah.
Because if not, to me, this seems like it would hurt a lot less, for example, than if your modding deck got banned. Because like, if you were, I don't know, playing Boros Energy in Modern and Guide of Souls got banned and then Boros Energy is into deck, and you went from having a great tier 1 Modern deck to not having a Modern deck.
Yeah.
Like, if you had a sick, really powerful Commander deck with Mana Crypt, then you went to having a sick, really powerful Commander deck without Mana Crypt. And yeah, you lost like potential value if you were to sell the cards. And I understand like that's disappointing and it sucks, but I think that is not probably what the rules committee should be optimizing for. Like, we should be optimizing for gameplay experience. And this also makes high power level Commander decks more accessible, right? If you're one of the people who didn't have a Mana Crypt but would like to have a more powerful Commander deck, then it means it's less of a financial barrier to hit that bar, which sounds like a good thing. On the rules committee stepping down, first thing to say is that like, behavior of a few people has been clearly absolutely deplorable. I don't understand what thought process goes through someone's head to actually go and send those messages. I suspect that in the long run, WotC would have ended up running the format regardless. I think that from their, if you looked at it from their point of view, then having your most popular format not being controlled by you would be like a pretty risky, pretty problematic thing in a corporate sense, as it were. But I don't really think this is actually a good thing for the community. Like, we went from a rules committee, I think we were all very confident, like, even if you disagreed with some of their decisions, I don't think the vast majority of Commander players thought they were doing it for any other reason than to try and make the format as fun as possible. I mean, I'm sure there are some wild conspiracy people, people out there.
Really are.
And yeah. But I think the most reasonable Commander players would say that.
Yeah, well, and as well, like they took it from obscurity to the most popular format in Commander. They have a track record of shepherding the format to a point where it is the most popular format, and a lot of the problems that kind of you've mentioned, or if the biggest issue with these bannings is price, then that's not on the rules committee. That is entirely on Wizards and their reprint policy.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, these were cards in like 3 of these 4 cards were designed explicitly for Commander.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads me into like the sort of broader issue I have with Wizards' approach to Commander. Like, I'm sure this isn't true for everyone, but for me, Commander was more fun before Wizards started explicitly designing for it. It felt like
so. Yeah.
It felt like you had to work to make your cards powerful, and they didn't all enable themselves. And now it's very much like we just give you all these really powerful things multiple times a year, and everything says each player and is therefore like a ton better than all the other cards you could be playing. And you often don't really have to work to make, you don't have to like go deep on the synergies, you don't have to find new things, you just sort of do the thing the cards tell you to do. And to me, that is kind of less fun. And to me, I suspect that the rules committee were in some regards holding in check the super powerful Commander printings because Wizards knew that they would ban them, right? Like you look at Hullbreacher, you look at Leovold, even stuff like Lutri. I don't know if Lutri was meant for Commander or not, but I was just like, no, this is going to be a terrible game experience for Commander, having this completely free roll companion, ban it out the gates. I don't know if WotC would do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, like they come out like it's been reported a couple of times that the rules committee came out and said like don't print Jeweled Lotus.
Yeah,
that was their advice because they were showing cards at a time. They were just they recommended don't print this card or don't print this because these kind of things will happen. We'll get to a point where fast mana becomes a thing, and then it's kind of it's a lot of things have happened to get us to this point, and it's kind of like we could definitely go on about this for a while, but I do want to get us on to our main topic because that's been it's important to talk about, but it's been a bit miserable. Let's talk about something a little more fun. Let's talk about Cube, a format that that you control the bannings, you control what goes in your cube. And I'm just going to say it, if you didn't have a mana crypt, or if you did have a mana crypt, you still have one for your cube now. So let's go.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed the fake VNR posts on Twitter. It's like, ban list changes, Cube. All cards you like are unbanned. All cards you dislike are banned. This is why it's the best format.
Yeah, 100% is. But one of the reasons we did want to talk about the bannings is because it does feed into a card that we're talking about today. Today, we're talking about Nadu Winged Wisdom in Cube. So Nadu, I think, was actually the one card that everyone was like, yeah, fine, ban it, get out the format.
Absolutely. Horrific in every other format is made an appearance in, I think. But in Cube, kind of cool.
Yeah, I think so. So let's read Nadu for those unaware. So Nadu Winged Wisdom is 1, a green and a blue for a 3/4 legendary creature bird wizard with flying. If I stopped reading there, that would still probably be playable in a large amount of cubes. But it has more. It has creatures you control have, whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land, put it onto the battlefield, otherwise put it into your hand. This ability triggers only twice each turn. So one important rules thing there that might not be immediately clear is that triggers twice each turn is for each creature you control. It's not twice each turn in total. It's for each creature you control. And that does get important as we start going through the card. So let's give a bit of background on Nadu. So what we've learned about the design process is that at every point, this was a mistake. Despite being in the main set of Modern Horizons 3, as James alluded to when we're talking about the bannings, this was actually designed for Commander. They are designing cards in main sets for Commander. This was one of them. But when they were building it and playtesting it, it wasn't hitting the right spot. So very late in testing, they changed it to its current form. It was so late in testing, actually, that they didn't actually playtest the card with the current wording. Like all the best Broken Magic cards, what's some other examples? Rancor, I think, was this.
I think Skullclamp was like +1/+0, and then they decided that was too good, so they made it +1/-1.
Exactly, yes.
Because apparently no one had ever seen a 1 toughness creature before.
Yeah, exactly. But the main thing with Nadu is that the designers didn't see the interaction with 0 equip artifacts, because that interaction is kind of nuts. James, do you want to touch on how equipment with 0 equip cost, so things like Shuko, which is one generic for a artifact equipment that has equip creature gets +1/+0, and it has equip for 0, and Lightning Greaves, which we all know what Lightning Greaves does, but importantly, it has equip 0. How does the equip 0 part interact with Nadu Winged Wisdom, and why is it a bit messed up?
Yeah, so equip 0 means basically you can trigger the Nadu ability, so whenever something becomes a target of a spell or ability, equip is a spell or ability. So you can trigger that just by using the equip. The equip costs 0. So you can trigger this twice for every creature you have in play. That gets really broken really quickly because as you trigger, you get more mana because your lands, as you hit lands, the lands come in untapped, which is
Wild.
Yeah.
Wild.
You can then keep making more creatures. There's ways to do that for free just off making the lands, but also you can just play more creatures from your hand. That's going to let you keep triggering it, and it can all snowball really, really quickly.
Yeah, so this saw, I'm not even going to say a lot of play. It effectively owned Pro Tour Amsterdam during the summer, during the brief window where it was legal in Modern. It was then subsequently banned from Modern after winning the Pro Tour, and kind of the deck for that was a bit wild. It went through a couple of different combinations. James, you've played Modern in the past. Do you want to just talk about what was Nadu's impact on Modern? Like, what did the deck look like, and kind of what was the things that we learned about Nadu that we didn't like that we didn't know in terms of like how the deck could play out, like how Nadu actually plays in like competitive Magic?
Yeah, the deck in Modern was absolutely insane. It's the most powerful Modern deck the most dominant Modern deck we've ever seen. I think this deck made Hogak look positively fair.
Unban my boy.
I wouldn't go that far. Yeah, but basically you play some Accelerants, you play Delighted Halfling and whatever, because they like base your Nadu uncounterable also, and just get into your Nadu quickly. You have 4 copies of Shuko, which is a 1 mana cost, 0 to equip equipment. You also have 4 copies of Urza's Saga to find your Shuko. With your Dorks, you're also using that to get to Chord of Calling, which again finds your Nadu. It also finds a Nomad's Encore, which is basically a 3 mana creature that targets things for 0 mana. So you really, really reliably get to put together Nadu plus a way to trigger Nadu for free. Then you have enough of creatures in play from your Dorks that will get you a lot of value. But the thing that really then makes it go, infinite is slightly wrong because it's not deterministic, but essentially go infinite is Springheart Nantuko. Springheart Nantuko is 1 and a green for a 1/1, and whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you create a 1/1. You can also bestow it to something, and then if it's bestowed, you can pay 1 and a green to make a copy of what it's bestowed on instead. It's a super big part of that card in Cube, and sometimes the One games would come down to that, but mostly you were there for the landfall, getting your 1/1. That essentially meant you'd never run out of 1/1s, because each time you hit a land, that's essentially 2 more Nadu triggers. That meant you could get all the way through your deck, and you were making a lot of mana because your lands are coming in untapped. Once you've got through your deck, you could either, if you care about your quality of life, basically, you put a Thassa's Oracle in your deck, and then you just cast Thassa's Oracle, and you win the game.
But they didn't, James. They weren't doing that. It was wild.
Yeah. You actually had to do that on Magic Online, essentially, because it was too many clicks otherwise.
Not a plus, but
in paper they realized actually the Thassa's Oracle was redundant, because what you could do was you get all the way through your deck, you cast a 1 ring. I think you normally played like 2-ish 1 rings. Some of them maybe played 4. And then once you've got your 1 ring in play, you have ring protection, so your opponent can't really screw with you next turn. You play, you then evoke an Endurance. you stack the endurance triggers such that the endurance is sacrificed before you get the graveyard shuffle trigger. The graveyard shuffle trigger targets yourself. You then shuffle endurance and the rest of your graveyard back into your library, and you do it all again. And you could just keep going. It was completely basically you ended up normally. I think the deal was you had to pass the turn, but you had like an infinite board and ring protection, and there's nothing your opponent can do. And you can also like get rid of all their stuff with like Beseiju and Otawara at some point along the way. I'm sure I'm explaining that badly. There speaks people who've actually played the deck, but yeah, that's pretty much the deal. You get all the way through your deck with Nadu triggers, you make 1,000,000 you win the game.
So definitely very powerful in Modern, but just like as a card itself, James, as I kind of mentioned when I was reading it out, like 3 mana, 3/4 flyer is kind of stacked as it is, but just like, just talk about Nadu as an individual creature, James, because like it seems really annoying to remove or interact with.
Yeah, I mean it's a 3 mana, 3/4 flyer that when they kill it or any of your other creatures will do better than draw you a card, right? Because it's always a card, but then sometimes you have a land straight into play. That's already good. And then on top of that, it's not hard to have a few things in your deck that target your creatures. Things like Mother of Runes will just like get you an activation every turn. Skull Clamp, not a 0-cost equipment, but a 1-cost equipment that is in many powerful cubes already. Just move a Skull Clamp around, like this trigger is worth a mana to you a lot of the time. Similar with like Jisei and things. So in powerful cubes, even if it's not like, even if you had nothing else to support it, this will still be a good card. It's been in Mitgo powered cube for a while, and I basically like don't cut it from blue-green decks that have other creatures. Like, sure, if I was doing like a channel flash deck, which didn't have any cheap creatures, then I wouldn't play Nadu because it wouldn't really do anything. But in any sort of like fair creature-based deck that can cast it, I pretty much want Nadu in my pile.
No, exactly. Yeah, the fact that it's just like, is it a 2-for-1? I'm always bad with the maths with this kind of thing.
Yeah,
but like,
if they point a removal spell at it, it's absolutely a 2-for-1.
But it's just the fact that like 4 times means it doesn't die to lightning bolt. That's so infuriating.
Yeah. Not dying to bolt is really egregious as well. There's a lot of things that they could have done differently on this card. Yeah. But yes, not dying to bolt is kind of wild.
Ward 2, Jay. No. No more Ward. But yeah, so obviously this card was way too much for Modern, and it was in fact banned on the 26th of August. And then obviously last week, God, time has flown so slowly in the last 2 weeks. It was also banned in Commander. The reason for which was, they kind of mentioned, was for long, non-deterministic turns. And put a pin in that. We will chat about that when we get to kind of downsides a little bit later on. But we want to talk about Nadu In Cube in terms of it being a package. So this is a selection of cards that you can kind of put in your cube to really get the most out of this quite powerful card. It's not a full archetype. This is not like what Simic is doing in your cube. You can't like, it's not like Simic is the Nadu deck. This is a package in the same way that kind of like the Wheels deck is a package. It's kind of like 5 or 6 cards over a number of colors. Kind of like Kiki Jiki Splinter Twin is a package you can run to kind of like put something cool in a cube. And we've been playing this for a couple of drafts now, and I personally think the Nadu deck is quite fun.
Yes, yeah. I haven't got to draft it in your cube yet, but I've drafted it in Powered Cube, and I've certainly seen it pop off in your cube. And yeah, it's cool. It's very unique, right? And yeah, it's also, I think, if you're at a very high power level of cube, it's quite hard to make creature combo work. Like, a lot of them just kind of don't really get there anymore. Like, so stuff, even like the twin stuff, is like kind of getting power crept out, when this is one that really works, I think.
Exactly. I've really been looking for a cool creature combo in my cube for ages. Like, we've had Kiki Jiki's Twin, we've cut it because it's just not that powerful anymore. I have tried persist combos so many times, James, and no one drafts them apart from me, and then I lose with them. And it's kind of like, I didn't really show anyone with that, did I?
Yeah.
But yeah, so for this package, let's talk about it a little bit. So because Cube is obviously primarily a singleton format, we're going to be talking about this in the most standard cubes, in which case we only get one Nadu. So we're going to be looking for multiple redundant effects. One thing with Cube is the card pool can be a little bit bigger, especially than Modern, and also probably, well, now it's bigger than Commander because, Nadu's legal. But the other thing to mention is also that Nadu is kind of an engine more than it is a win con. You kind of, if you're playing this in Cube, you still really need a way to win the game. Like, I mean, you could do the endurance thing, but that sounds a bit miserable. Don't do that. We are going to actually give you a way to win the game. So let's talk about some cards we're going to be suggesting for the package. So obviously, we have Nadu. That is the cornerstone of the package. That is kind of, what you kind of want to work. Finding redundant effects to Nadu is a little bit tricky, but it's not impossible. So one of the outcomes with Nadu is effectively you mill your deck. That will come into the win cons we get onto a little bit. But there is another card that does that element of milling your deck that also triggers from zero-drop equipment or triggered abilities. And that card is Cephalid Illusionist. If you've played Cephalid Breakfast in Legacy, you'll know where I'm going with this. But it is 1 and a blue for a 1/1 creature octopus wizard. Hold on. I'm actually angry that they've errated Cephalid to be octopus. It's a Cephalid in my heart.
That is fairly heinous, isn't it? Yeah.
It's in the name.
Try and get the original printing that says Cephalid if you can.
100%. But when Cephalid Illusionist becomes the target of a spell or ability, mill 3 cards, and you can pay a 2 and a blue and tap it to prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to and dealt by target creature you control this turn. So how this works with Shuko and Lightning Greaves, any zero-drop equipment, is you can use those to target this multiple times, and effectively you mill your whole deck. So your whole deck goes into the graveyard. That is different to Nadu, but Nadu is such a unique broken card that we will never see the likes of again. This is the best you can get in terms of redundancy to Nadu.
Yeah, I would. So I think this was a really cool ad in your cube, actually. I've not really seen it in many other cubes, but I think if you're supporting Nadu to the extent that you're adding a card like Shuko, which essentially doesn't do anything in any other deck, then I kind of think the Cephalid Illusionist angle is almost essential, because I think it's quite important in cube design to not include any cards that only work with one other card, because it will just be too often that that card won't be opened, or you see the Nadu in pack 3 and the Shuko's already gone, and it all just doesn't work out. So you need that redundancy to make Shuko kind of justify its place in the cube. And some of the other stuff, which I think is less Nadu specific than Shuko, but it enables you to put in more enablers, I think, because they're not dead when you don't open Nadu. One other note on Shuko, actually, on Cephalid Illusionist, is I think so generally with that card, you're trying to mill your whole deck and then win the game with a Thassa's Oracle or something similar, right? I think a really good card to add if you're doing that is Dread Return, if you can find space, and you can just cut a different reanimation spell for it, right? Like, it's not a premium one, but it's fine. A reanimated deck will run it. But what Dread Return means is that you don't need the Thassa's Oracle in your hand. You don't need anything in your hand. You just mill over your whole deck, including the Thassa's Oracle and the Dread Return. Dread Return is a reanimate that you can flash back by sacking 3 creatures. So as long as you have 2 other creatures along with your Illusionist, then you can just sack them. You can be completely tapped out, get your Thassa's Oracle back, and win in the same turn, which is a very nice angle to have.
Ooh, that's pretty vibey. I do love Dread Return, and excuse me to put it back in, so maybe that will come in with the next one. So that's it in terms of redundant effects. So in terms of the engine cards, we have Nadu and we have Cephalid Illusionist. In terms of ways of activating and triggering those, we've mentioned Shuko, we mentioned Lightning Greaves. I don't think Lightning Greaves is that heinous of a card to run in a cube, just like in a vacuum. Shuko, you're not running unless you have Nadu and Cephalid Illusionist, but in those decks, it is very good because, as James mentioned earlier, you can Urza's Saga for it. It's a cheap equipment. It is better than Lightning Greaves because it's easier to find in these kind of decks, and it's just very good. The other card that I think you mentioned was Nomad's Encore, which is a white mana for a 1/1 creature core Nomad Soldier. It has a 0 activated ability of the next 1 damage that would be dealt to Nomad's Encore this turn is dealt to target creature you control instead. So this is effectively you can infinitely pick. You can infinitely prevent the next damage that would be taken, and you target Nadu or your Cephalid Illusionist. You go off in the same way that you would with Shuko or Lightning Greaves.
Yeah, this one is, I guess the upside to this one is that you can tutor for it with the same things that tutor for your Nadu, right? Like if you have a bunch of creature tutors in your deck, they're like Worldly Tutor or whatever, then they can also get a Nomad's Encore. So it's kind of nice to have that overlap. But I will say, I think this is significantly worse than Shuko and Greaves, and just because they can kill it, right? And it also has no application in other decks. I think my sort of tier list here for enablers would be Lightning Greaves, I think, is definitely the best because it is almost as good with Nadu as Shuko is. It just costs 1 more mana. Sometimes it's better, right? Because you can actually just, even when you can't go off, you can leave it on your Nadu on their turn. They can't kill it. The second best, but yeah, and that is the one I'd put in if I was sort of lightly supporting Nadu, you know?
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't want to include any cards that were dead in other decks, then I would put in a Lightning Greaves because you can do the cool thing once in a while and you've not really cost yourself much. Shuko, I think, is a fairly dedicated card for Nadu / Cephalid Illusionist, if that's in your cube. But I think it's probably the best one because it's only 1 mana, artifacts harder to skill than creatures. And yeah, sort of a third place, I guess, would be Nomad's Encore.
Yeah, I think the way I'm looking at it is if you're kind of a 540 and smaller cube, you run Nadu, Cephalid Illusionist, Shuko, and Greaves. And if you're in a bit bigger and you want some more redundancy, then that's when you would consider the Nomad Encore, I think. Because although we are trying to make this combo work, we can kind of excuse a Shuko because it can be tutored by stuff and will stick around and we know it's going to be there. I'm not cutting Esper Sentinel for Nomad's Encore with peace and love.
Yeah, no, that sounds horrendous, doesn't it?
But so that's kind of the core package, but there are some other bits that you need to include to make this package work. So the next thing that you really want to really make it kind of pop off, and these kind of don't really... The next cards we're going to go over are cards that you could likely see in a cube anyway, and that's kind of the nice part about it. So effectively, the main package is like the 4 or 5 cards we've already mentioned. The rest of it are cards you might likely already have or could run or could support in your cube. The next one we're going to talk about is token makers, specifically ones with landfall. So James mentioned Springheart and Nantuko as part of the modern deck. There's a bunch of other landfall maker creatures out there. Like Scoot Swarm is a great example. If you've played Commander, you've probably come across a Scoot Swarm. But anything that's landfall maker creature is kind of nuts with Nadu because of the interaction of you target it, you play a land, you flip 2 cards, one of them could be a land. You get to target 2 more things. You do it all over again, and you just kind of splurge your whole deck onto the battlefield, and it's kind of a bit nuts. And like Springheart and Nantuko is actually quite a strong card by itself because of that bestow ability, being able to copy the best creature you have. But I could see Scoot Swarm being pretty powerful in a lot of cubes anyway, like in a lot of cubes as well.
Yes, I think it is very powerful. It is a powerful card. It can be a little slow in that. And I think it's good for Nadu. I think it's like a good second token maker for Nadu. I think in other decks, it might see play, but probably not a ton, just because it's probably going to be a little bit slow. Like when we're talking about adding a Nadu package, we're probably talking about a pretty powerful cube. And then it's like, are you getting 7 lands or whatever it is quickly enough?
Yeah, so I'm giving you a fast bond payoff, James.
Okay, I'm down for that. Yeah. Yeah, I think Springheart and Nantuko definitely the best. Honestly, I would. Yes. This card's so much fun to play with. I would put it in every cube that can handle the power level anyway. The more I play with this card, the more you like just find interesting things to do with it. Like you put it on an Eternal Witness, that's phenomenal. I actually found a really neat little combo with this the other day with the 5 mana Nissa, one that like animates your lands and then your forest tap for green.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you animate a forest, put Springheart Nantuko on it, and then make a land drop, then you can pay for the green with the forest. You get another forest. That triggers it again. You pay your forest taps for green, so you can make infinite forests.
Jesus.
Yeah. It's kind of cool.
That's wild. Okay.
Yeah. they're tapped, so you don't get infinite mana right away. But you have infinite mana next turn if you have any landfall thing, or like add a Zervan Orb, so it was like infinite life off the bat. Well, life equal to patience actually was the limiting factor on Magic Online.
Yeah.
But I saw I think LSV posted a screenshot where it like made like 10 raging ravines in a turn to kill them with the next turn. You can just do like a bunch of weird stuff with Nantu code. It's all pretty vibey and cool.
Okay, wild. Okay, sweet. That's pretty fun. Talking of ways of winning the game, let's actually talk about ways that we're going to be winning with this Nadu package. One of the things that we've talked about is going through our library. Either just, I'm not going to use the word naturally in anything to do with Nadu, but kind of just like doing it the brute force way with Nadu, drawing through our deck, or with the Cephalid Illusionist style of self-mill. And that's with cards like Thassa's Oracle, Laboratory Maniac, and Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. These are cards that effectively win you the game when you have no cards in library. I think Thoracle is probably the best one of these because it's a trigger that they can't really respond to. The other ones have to be in play, so they can respond to stuff. They can kill Labman, they can kill Jace. Thassa's Oracle is way harder to deal with, but those are the kind of like probably the main ways that you're actually winning if you're actually building towards this deck and this archetype. One other way that came up this weekend, which I wasn't really thinking of when I put the package in, was we had a player who was in a Is It Storm deck, saw Nadu come round in pack 3 and incorporated Nadu into a Storm deck and used Brain Freeze as the win con. Because for those of you who listened to our Storm in Cube episode, one of the main things that came up was that mana is often the main issue. Nadu does give you quite a lot of mana. So Nadu Storm card confirmed. That's pretty vibey. Did you see that deck actually, James, at the weekend?
Yeah, it looked really cool. Like, I liked the Yarg Will to rebuy your Nadu as well.
That was wild.
Just like, sort of about Yarg Will, Nadu out of the graveyard, here's my Lightning Greaves. Or Shuko, I think it was.
Yeah.
Go ham was, then freeze you out was phenomenal.
Yeah, that's kind of incredibly stupid. Let's talk about some other enablers now. These are ones that I don't think you are dedicated for this section, but these are just cards that I personally think if you're not in a budget cube, you probably should just be running these now. These are cards like Bristly Bill, Spine Sower, Luminarch Aspirant, and Ornery Tumblewag. These are just fantastic creatures that effectively put a counter on a creature at least every turn. Luminarch Aspirant and Ornery Tumblewag just put it on at the start of combat. Bristly Bill is a landfall trigger, which could get a bit nuts with Nadu. And those are just kind of safe, like these aren't, you're not really comboing off with these, but you're just getting so much value by triggering Nadu every turn that they're just incredibly good. The other one I want you to talk about, James, you added Sylvan Safekeeper to this list, and I think this one's really cool. Do you want to actually read out Sylvan Safekeeper for those unaware of what it is? Because it's an oldie, but it's less common that you see it in Cube nowadays.
Yeah, it's a cool card. It's actually, I think it came back into a vintage Cube sort of before Nadu and found a bit of a home, and then it's like just had another string to its bow with Nadu. So it's a single green mana for 1/1, and you can sacrifice a land and target creature you control gains Shroud until end of turn. So the joke with this with Nadu, right, is that you can play this, you can get as many Nadu triggers as lands you have. Obviously, you're sacking your lands, so you have to kind of be winning this turn or doing something really good this turn at least. But then when you hit more lands off Nadu, that's again more mana, and there are more lands that you can sack. So it's not going to let you keep going forever, probably, because you're not hitting a land every trigger off Nadu, right? But it'll let you get a really good amount of activations, right? Because it's all the lands you have in play plus the lands you have off the top of your deck. And this is one where, so the others I think we're mostly, like if you're talking about Luminarch Aspirant Nadu, I think we're mostly talking about Nadu for value, which is really good. This can be Nadu for value. It protects your Nadu, but it can also do the combo thing as well. Like not as well as a Shuko, but it can do it pretty well. Like if you're a decent chunk of the way through your library, you could probably get to a Thassa's Oracle off this.
Yeah, that is a sweet include. I do like Sylvan Safekeeper. And it also has other combo application with other combos that want you sacrificing lands.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's been really sick in Vintage Cube with Titania. That's the 5 mana 5/3 ETB return a land for your graveyard, and whenever you sack a land, you get a 5/3. So you just like cast Titania, get a thing back, and then you make like 30 power and then step and kill them. And this like has some applications with like Dark Depths as well, right? It protects your Merit Lage. So it's a surprisingly versatile card, I'd say.
No, sick. I think before we move on to kind of how the package plays and power level stuff, let's actually just recap the cards, because I know we've kind of thrown a lot of people. I just want to make sure everyone's kind of on the same page. So in terms of the core package, we have Nadu and Sever the Illusionist as kind of our engine cards. These are how we're going to be getting through our deck. We have Shuko, Lightning Greaves, Nomads Core as our kind of core, see what I did there, enablers for the ability, because they can basically trigger Nadu and Sever the Illusionist for free as many times as we want. We have a token maker like Springheart and Nantuko specifically because it just works so well with Nadu in terms of the landfall, gives us more things to trigger. And then we have our win cons. We have things like Thassa's Oracle, Labman, Jace World of Mysteries, things that let us win the game by having no cards in our deck. And then you have some other guys like Brain Freeze and some other enablers like Sylvan Safekeeper, Bristly Bill. Kind of like that's kind of the package that we're kind of primarily talking about. And I think one thing I didn't want to touch on, James, is kind of like, yeah, outside of the 4 cards specifically for Nadu, including Nadu, the rest of that is stuff that you see in relatively like a decent amount of high-powered cubes. Like a lot of high-powered cubes will have a Thassa's Oracle style of win with no cards in library kind of deck. You will see lands decks with things like Fast Bomb, that kind of stuff. So kind of like, and also Brain Freeze is a card that you see in a lot of powerful cubes. So kind of like, I think that's one of the things I like about this package is kind of it does fit nicely into a lot of the things that people are already running.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, honestly, looking at the list we have so far, I think the only card I would be adding just for Nadu is Shuko. Like, I think the rest of them all have applications, like some more than others. Like, Lightning Greaves does things in other decks, but I probably still wouldn't put in if I didn't have Nadu in the cube. But stuff like Foracle, as you say, supports a bunch of other archetypes that use Foracle really well. Like, Bristly Bill, Luminarch, Astra, these are just great cards. Same with Swingheart and Nantuko. So yeah, maybe you're looking at like a Shuko and a Nomad's Encore and a Cephalid Illusionist, right? As cards that are just doing this thing.
No, 100%. Let's touch on power level of cube, because obviously we've touched on a lot of cards that are banned in a lot of formats. We've touched on things like Fast Spawn, we've touched on Storm, that kind of stuff. That should probably give you the idea of where we are with power level with this. Like part of me wants to say that like you could put Nadu in a budget cube and just with no support and it would be strong, but probably fine and annoying. If you're putting Nadu in with Shuko, because there could be a chance this package is actually quite cheap now that Nadu is banned everywhere. This is not for a budget cube. Do not put Nadu, Shuko, Lightning Greaves, Cephalid Illusionist in your budget cube. The whole package probably costs, like, those 4 cards probably cost less than, oddly, I reckon Cephalid Illusionist is going to be the most expensive card out of that, actually. Unless Shuko is randomly still expensive because it went up in price. But what I'm trying to say is the package is quite cheap, but that does not mean it is a budget. It is a package for budget decks. In the same way that Sol Ring is a very budget card, you should not be running it in your budget cubes just because the power level will warp. This is for me, like this is for tuned cubes and above. Like if you're running things like Path Swords, all like the good removal, all the good interaction, you have good creatures in there, kind of like you're doing powerful things, you're trying to win on like turn 5 or 6, then I think this is doable. If you're anywhere that kind of level up, then I think this could have a place. And I would go up until like the Vintage Cube. I think this could have a place there. I think it's fun enough for that.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like not just Nadu as a card is not one that belongs in a budget setting, really. Honestly, if you wanted to do some cool Shuko stuff, you could just play like in a budget cube, you could play like Cephalid Illusionist and Cephalid Aristocrat, right? Which is basically a 5-mana Cephalid Illusionist, and try and just lean into the Cephalids and a fast Oracle. That sounds sweet. But yeah, Nadu as a card, keep it for powerful cubes.
Yeah, no, 100%. Let's actually talk about how the deck has played. So let's talk about like the cool parts first. So firstly, I have found it really cool as a cube design to kind of like, because effectively I wanted to play Nadu. I was kind of like, should we do this? Yeah, let's put this package in. And it showed up immediately. Like the first draft we had with this package in, a player had Nadu, Greaves, and Springheart and Nantuko, and they did the thing, and it was awesome. And the thing is, because it's Cube, they had to draft those. They had to pick those cards over other things. That's kind of like the self-correcting nature of Cube that I think is worth mentioning at this point. Because, like, yes, this is busted, but you still have to draft it. You still have to see it. And, like, effectively, I think the 2 times that we've seen this come out, they have done, I think the player has done the Nadu thing, like, 2 or 3 times over 3 rounds. So it's not like you are similar to Kiki Jiki Twin. It is a thing that you have in your deck that is cool and is a fun thing to do, but it's not like, unless you really stack up on the tutors, it's not like this is your game plan from the start. It's more like you have like a cool, powerful Simic deck, and you have this cool interaction in there that you can kind of win out of nowhere with, or that you can win with as well.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's gone off really hard. I mean, I think the first one we saw had like a phenomenal setup for it, with like everything was suited tutorable. There was like Green Suns. There's a bunch of ways to get Nadu back. I remember killing Nadu like 3 times in game, and it still seemed to reappear. And then like I think it was Greaves and Stoneforge to get the Greaves, so it all works together very well if you get the right cards. But it's nice, it's doing a very powerful thing, but you are taking a risk, right? Like,
100%.
You can take a Nadu and not get the payoffs, which is probably fine. But you can also, if you're out there picking Shuko super highly, you're taking a pretty big risk there. And you kind of do need the enablers, and to go really hard, you also need like a Springheart Nantuko type effect. Or just to have a deck which makes a bunch of creatures in other ways, right? You can do it with like, I cast Pest Infestation last turn, and I have 6 dudes, and now I'm getting a really long way with my Nadu. Also, I think if you don't get the win con, like the Fastest Oracle type effect, your deck will suffer a little bit for it, because you'll have to pass the turn, but it's still really good. Like, it is totally fine to, like, if you have the thing where you can keep going as long as you want, you're set up with a Springheart and a Nadu and a Shuko or whatever, you can just like put a million things into play and stop with like 5 cards in your library and probably win next turn. Like, that is also a valid. It's not like, I didn't get Fast Oracle, so my deck sucks. But yeah, you do need some pieces. So I think it's a nice power level, right, where you're not adding a ton of cards to make it work, but the payoff is really high. Because I'm always in Cube when I can not add a ton of cards to my cube, but I generate like a whole distinct new sort of deck. I think that's really cool. Like, it's why I really like a card like Oath of Druids to add to cube, right? Which, like, I feel like 80% of a drafts no one plays Oath of Druids, but I want to put it in because it's only 1 slot. And the time when someone does draft it, it's not just like, oh, this is another playable in my deck. It's like, no, I drafted a really cool Oath deck, and that's like a whole unique thing. And I think Nadu is kind of in the same space, right? Like, you'll be like, I am the Nadu deck. I'm not just putting Nadu in my Simic deck.
No, yeah, definitely. That makes sense. Yeah, and obviously we've talked about the Nadu Storm deck that came up the last time we drafted. Yeah, looking at the mana base on that was phenomenal, but the fact that was able to work that is why I'm kind of quite high on this package right now, because people are doing things that I didn't expect, and kind of that's one of the best feelings as a cube designer anyway. It's kind of like, I have given my players these tools, and they are leading the way, that kind of stuff. And like, to be fair, he did like, I remember when the chap was building the deck, he did have to make some adjustments to it, because a Storm deck doesn't normally have that many creatures in it. So there was a couple of adjustments. I think like Snapcaster got a bit higher in the list, that kind of stuff. But like, to make it work, he was making it like, he made a pivot, I will say, because he started adding green to his Storm deck, that kind of stuff, to his Grixis Storm deck. But yeah, it paid off, and it seemed like when it happened, he was having a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it looks really cool. Big fan of that one.
But let's talk about the downsides, because obviously Nadu has been banned in 2 formats. One for being too strong, and one for being a bit too oppressive and, let's say, long-winded. Let's talk about the downsides to Nadu. And this is one of the reasons, I guess, again, while I'm recommending this in higher power level cubes, where you have generally more likely to find players who are more accustomed and are better equipped to navigate potentially long, non-deterministic turns, like like James said, like sometimes it's fine and correct actually to storm off to nothing because you're just accruing so much value. If you whiff and don't win on that turn, it's fine. Like working out how to do that and navigate that is very important. And with the non-deterministic turns, there is an opponent on the other end of that who has to sit through that.
I think if you're in a high power level cube, right, you're kind of signing up for sometimes there will be games where my opponent does a million things before I've done the first thing. And I mean, Nadu's not so quick that it's doing it like on Dead 5, but there will be some games where you're sat at a table and you feel like you're not participating for some amount of time. And Nadu can definitely lead to that. I think in some playgroups, that's fine, right? Like, they're like, oh, cool, you did a cool thing. Congratulations. Let's shuffle up and play again. There are certainly cube groups where people would find that really annoying. And I think that's a very understandable position. And so I think whether you want to add it is partly to do with your playgroup, right? Or the experience you're going for in your cube.
Exactly. And I guess part of it as well might be that I think everyone playing Magic and everyone playing Cube knows how broken Nadu is. But the chances that people have actually played with it a bunch is probably quite slim because effectively most people that I'm aware of avoided Modern when Nadu was legal. And I don't know anyone who's built it in Commander. Obviously, some people will have, but like it's not something that I've seen as much. So what I'd hope is it like the kind of like similarly to like the first time Splinter Twin is in a deck, you have to kind of work out how it works. I'm hoping with this one, give it time, like the turns will start moving a bit quicker. But one thing that is important as well is like, this can lead to complicated board states, and you need to track with this. Like this Nadu is definitely a card they programmed for Arena in terms of you can only target each creature twice in a turn, that kind of stuff. So you need to track that, and that can be a bit of a faff. Last time it was played in our pod, the player who was storming off with it, but he just basically started with his creatures on the left and went right with their triggers. There is a world where that is not the most correct line of play, but dear God, I think we're appreciative of him doing that because it's not like I'm going to go through the line once. Oh, I've made more creatures, so this lot over here only have one trigger. This one in the middle is 2. These have 0. Just think of quality of life, I guess, is where I'm going with this. So just just start with the left, do 2, do 2, do 2, go down the list is probably a nice, easy way of doing this if you're not like LSV or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. It actually becomes even slightly harder to track if you're using Greaves rather than Shuko because you can't equip to the same creature. Because Shuko, you can just, for a second trigger, you target the creature that's already equipped and then it's done. Whereas Greaves, you can't do that. It has Shroud.
Yes.
Actually, also something to be aware of with the Sylvan Safekeeper lines. If you're going for the same creature twice, you have to go target it with Safekeeper, trigger on the stack, target it with Safekeeper, because once the first trigger has resolved, it has Shroud, you can't target it again.
Shroud is bad. Shroud is old hexproof for those unaware, but yes, it's...
Yes, exactly. Can't be that. Yes, it is hexproof, but you can't target it with your abilities either. So yeah, you certainly, it's good if your play group sort of have played some combo stuff before and are going to be able to get through it quite quickly.
No, yeah. I think that's all important to talk about. Let's keep things rolling. Let's talk about one thing that I know cube designers are always quite rightly looking for is how does this overlap with other decks and other archetypes? So obviously, we've kind of mentioned a bunch of cards just in Simic that work with this. It just goes in like a Simic ramp deck very well. Like that is where you can kind of just like leave it and it'll be fine. And if you don't get there with the whole combo, but you get a couple of like the ways of putting counters on it, it's just going to be great in a Simic combo deck because it's going to ramp you, draw you cards, get you a big fatty, questing beast, go to town, that kind of thing is all very good. The other place it overlaps is with the win cons, like the dedicated win cons. If you're really going for the Nadu thing, is the Thassa's Oracle, Labman, Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. Like that overlaps with like the other self-milled decks. So Demonic Consultation, which is quite a messed up combo, or good old Doomsday. Love a bit of Doomsday, don't we, James?
I love the idea of like you have a Nadu in play and then you Doomsday and then you put Shuko as the top card for your Doomsday pile and that gets you through the pile. That sounds great.
That sounds sick. Or the mana trips black Simic. Love that.
I mean, we're going to need a Dark Ritual very realistically for this deck to work, but that's fine.
Yeah. And then obviously the other deck that we mentioned throughout the episode is Storm. This is one as I've gone over, wasn't one I was expecting to mention when talking about Nadu creature combos, but the fact that it does just generate you a bucket load of mana, and like there are Storm decks in green, like we touched on this in our episode dedicated to it. Green makes you a lot of mana. Fast Bond is a hell of a drug. Nadu is going to be pretty good in that shell as well. So
yeah, for sure. The other one I wanted to kind of shout out, I think, as a color combination that works really well for Nadu is Bant, actually. The sort of assertive Bant deck that plays like Elf into 3-drop, and then because you'll also have like Mother of Runes, Giver of Runes are both great with Nadu, because Nadu is a creature you really want to protect. But then if your opponent taps out and you feel like you can afford to tap out of your Mother of Runes, you just get a free trigger every turn. Plus, those decks have just have a lot of creatures in place, so you can often go really, really hard even if you don't have the Nantuko. You're making tokens and you're just casting a lot of creature. That's what your deck is doing. And a really nice thing you get from white is Stoneforge Mystic to go and tutor up your equipment pieces.
Is Nadu the best Selesnya card they've ever printed, James?
Yeah, I can see it.
Dear God, Nadu finally made Selesnya great.
I mean, Selesnya needs some help, so maybe that's it.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Nice.
You just put Nadu in a Selesnya slot, then all of a sudden you can play another Simic card.
Yeah. Nice. So let's awesome. I think let's kind of bring this Nadu conversation to a close with like some final thoughts. So I think the last thing I kind of want to touch on is like Nadu is a messed up Magic card. We've gone over that. These combos are strong. They are powerful. Nadu's a bugger to deal with. I think it's worth mentioning that the decks that have had the Nadu combo have gone 2-1 both times. I think there is a world where in the future they will one of them will go 3-0. Someone building a Nadu deck will 3-0 and it'll be good. But it'll also happen that it'll go 1-2, I think. I think that the 2-1 average will swing both ways. That's really nice for a new creature combo deck in a high-powered level cube. And I think that's one of the reasons why I want to talk about it and recommend it to those out there. Obviously, as mentioning, we will put a package link down in the description below if you want to add it to your own cube in Cube Cobra. But the fact that it hasn't just like run away with it, I think has been refreshing and nice, and means that I think it's a safe place to kind of recommend to other people.
Yes, yeah, for sure. I think if you're in a spot where your cube can handle it, and I think an important piece is that you want some of these other cards, like, and as we discussed, you don't need a Fastest Oracle, but like, if Fastest Oracle is in your cube already, then that's like a nice start for the Nadu deck that you don't have to add, right? Similar with Sylvan Safekeeper. But yeah, no, I think for your cube, it's a kind of a perfect power level.
Last question, James. How highly do you pick Nadu? Just out of interest.
In your cube?
Yeah, or yeah, in a cube where say you're looking at the deck list ahead of time and you see a Nadu and you see, let's say you see a Shuko or a Greaves, like in the list basically. So they've at least supported it. How highly are you taking Nadu if you see it in the first couple of packs, say?
So obviously the quest is dependent on the power level of the cube and how many of these pieces we have in there. Like, I actually think it makes a difference if we have just Greaves or Greaves and Shuko. In your cube, like, if I see a Nadu, pack one, pick one, and then there's some cards I'd take over it, but I'd be pretty happy first picking a Nadu, because I kind of feel like no one's going to be... I have the Nadus, no one else is taking my Shuko.
Yeah, specking a Shuko is wild, I think. I would agree with that.
Yeah. And yeah, someone might take my Greaves, but I feel like I have pretty good outs to end up with the pieces, and it's really good if I get there. So yeah, I'm pretty highly, I think.
Sweet. Love it. Yeah, as you mentioned, we'll put a link down to a Cube Cobra package in the show notes if you want to add it to your own cube. Do let us know. Links to our socials will be also down there, as well as if you're watching the video version, you can leave us a comment. What do you think of the package? How have you found Nadu in Cube? Let's not talk about Nadu in Modern or other formats, because as we discovered, it's quite broken there. But yeah, if you're thinking of giving it a go, let us know. It would be awesome to hear it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you want to complain about Nadu in Modern as well, that's fine. No one's going to stop you. But
I will not be responding. If that...
Yes, absolutely. We've all heard it.
Yeah.
Some of us have lived it. I haven't. I just ignored modern for the duration of Nadu's legality, and I feel quite good about that decision.
Reasonable. Right, well, I think that's going to do it for today. James, pleasure as always, mate. Thank you very much.
Yeah, always good. Thank you.
It just leaves me to thank you all very much for listening. Do make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Give us a 5-star review, give us a thumbs up, tell a friend. It all greatly helps out. Until next time, it's goodbye from me and it's goodbye from James, and we'll see you all soon. Goodbye.